Okay, I'm doing question 10, exercise 21C. In this question, I've zoomed in a bit. Triangle PQR is isosceles. Then this is really the key to this question. PQ equals PR. We have to show that X is the midpoint along here. I can do this because I know the triangle's isosceles, and I want to mark that on before I start. So they're giving me information. I'm going to use that information, right? PQ equals PR, right? Okay, if we draw a line to X, here we know that that line there is a right angle on either side. So that's where I'd start writing. I'd say angle PXR, and if you like, PXQ, but I think one's enough, equals 90 degrees. And how did I know that? Because I've used a theorem. This is the angle in semicircle theorem. Theorem. Okay, now at this point we've actually finished because they told us, or almost finished, because they told us PQR triangle was isosceles. So we actually know that if this line coming through the middle of the triangle is at a right angle, this length has to equal this length. So we could say QX equals XR, and all I need to say is I'm dealing with an isosceles triangle. All right, so you need to communicate that to get marks on a test, but you're allowed to know that. All right, you learnt about isosceles triangles earlier on in your schooling, and you know that, I'll just draw a little one here. Okay, so this, here we go, it's isosceles. Now you know that any line that comes down the middle, if it's a right angle, these two lengths have to be the same. Sometimes you're going to be using that knowledge, how can I explain this? So in different orders. So what I mean is, sometimes they might tell you those two lengths there are equal, or that this bottom line has been bisected. And then from that you could say, okay, if that's bisected, then the line up to the other point on the triangle has to be 90 degrees, right? But we're using our properties of isosceles triangle. We're logicking, reasoning, I should say. We're reasoning out in a different direction. We're saying, if there's a line that comes down the middle and it's at right angles, therefore these two lengths have to be the same. So this is my Q, my X, and my R on this diagram. So hopefully that makes sense, but you're allowed to assume that you know all the properties of isosceles triangle, and that's all we're doing. Now, maybe I just write one more line of communication here. I say, well, if, given that QX and XR are equal lengths, right, you can put a line in if you like. We're saying line QX and line XR. I could say, therefore, X has to be the midpoint, just to well and truly finish the question off, right? And I'm pretty sure that makes sense. You know, we've got some line QR. If we put an X in the middle, but either side of X, it's the same length, then X has to be the midpoint, right? So that question's not overly difficult. I thought it might be one that you may overcomplicate, right? But again, you know isosceles triangles, and you can assume all of their properties and theorems that go with them. Okay.